welcome to the New Mexico Veterans Memorial. Should you have need of the facilities, they're that way, my left or towards the mountains. What do you suppose people do without mountains? I was talking earlier with a fellow from Iowa, and I reminded him that the tallest thing in Iowa is a grain silo. I would remind you all that the memorial is a non-smoking environment, and dogs and little children should be kept close. Please feel free to explore the 25 acres here with all there is to see, including the vintage military vehicles. Before I begin the formal portion of today's ceremony, I must thank some very special people whose assistance is more than appreciated. Beth Hemrick and Mike Trissel from Cultural Services, Joanne Perkins from the Kirtland Air Force Base, Public Affairs, the van drivers from Senior Affairs, Fran Moya and Joseph Chavez from Parks and Rec, the volunteer Kirtland Airmen, the Planning Committee, and the wise counsel of my wife, Carol. She double checks everything. And I always test my joke on her. If she laughs and doesn't throw something at me, I know it's going to be good. I ask you all to join me in saluting not only those who gave their all, but also those who continue to serve at home and in foreign lands. The fallen heroes we pause to honor on this day represent the very character of a nation with a long history of patriotism and honor. They and you are the ones who fought to keep our country free from those who would enslave us. For those of us who bear the scars of war, yet survived, Memorial Day has a special meaning and sentiment as we honor those who fought at our side but did not return. Today, my Purple Heart Chapter 1966 would like to honor 4 of our Gold Star moms with ceremonial corsages. I'd ask my daughter Devin if she'd do the honors. The Gold Star moms here today are Joanne Zembiak, Pat Merville, Hildegard Reidenauer, and Kay Coleman. Thanks for being here, ladies. It may get kind of warm before we finish today, and there is water available. I don't know if you got it on the way in, but if you ask somebody real nicely, I'm sure we can get a bottle to you. It's just water. Kirtland Honor Guard, post the colors.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color, card, heart.
Please be seated. Chaplain, the invocation will be offered this morning by Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Darren Duncan.
Would you bow with me in prayer? Father, we see in our world in many faces, faces of peace and faces of war, faces of plenty and faces of want, faces of joy and faces of sadness. In times past, when the faces of courage and sacrifice were needed, we were blessed with men and women who offered their lives and did not doubt that it was right. Today in this ceremony, we remember them. We remember and give thanks for those who have cherished freedom and liberty more than life. As we recall with thanksgiving the soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and airmen who have lost their lives in defense of America, let us rededicate our lives to the ideals for which they paid the supreme price. Their legacy is our birthright and our responsibility. Help us so to perform the mission placed in our hands that generations yet unborn will continue to enjoy the freedoms we hold dear. Grant us skill, dedication, and courage for the daily tasks of maintaining the bright torch of liberty. By your grace and by your power, let us mount up as eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not faint, that our land may ever exist in peace and security. Help us, Lord, to show our gratitude by sharing the face of freedom with others. We can do no less for those who have done so much for us. For we ask and pray these things in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. I overlooked a little thing I should have done earlier, but the group that paid for the corsage is in my Purple Heart chapter 1966. So brothers, take up and stand a bow. Take a bow. I sometimes refer to Purple Heart recipients as the guys that didn't duck in time. Team Kirtland Airmen, post the state colors. I'd like to introduce our mayor, Tim Keller.
Well, good morning, Albuquerque. Today I want to start by also acknowledging Ken O'Keefe. Ken, I've listened to you, I think, ever since I got into my public service at these events, and I learn and I appreciate all that you do for our city and our community every time, more and more. Thank you so much, Ken. Let's give you a round of applause. Colonel Gibbs, commander of our Air Force Base Wing, and all our folks from Kirtland Air Force Base for hosting this ceremony, and everyone who works at the city of Albuquerque. I appreciate all your effort for making this event a reality. Also, there are dozens of volunteers who help make this facility what it is, and I want to thank them as well. I also want to acknowledge, I believe we have our former mayor, RJ Berry, in the audience. RJ, are you still with us here? RJ, thank you for all your service for our city. You know, Mayor Berry was a tremendous supporter of veterans and all the things we have to do in our community for veterans, and I'm proud to say that it's an area for me that was easy to transition into, and so I appreciate all his work for this community. Now, distinguished guests, veterans, active duty, families, Gold Star mothers, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts on this Memorial Day. Firstly, we are gathered here in a special place. This facility, as many of you know, contains memorials for most of our conflicts. It contains these beautiful grounds. It is something special that I hope by the end of my work as your mayor, every child in Albuquerque has the opportunity to visit and to learn from and to reflect in. This is a tremendous facility. It's actually the envy of other states and other cities. They visit Ken and they want to understand how to copy it and how we put it together. And so this is one of the true gems, and I'm proud to have it in Albuquerque. Now today, we pause as a city from our trips to Lowe's and to Home Depot for the barbecues, the soccer games, all the things that come to mind for many folks who have not served in the military or do not have family members in the military when we think of Memorial Day. But today we pause as a city to honor the sacrifice across the generations of those who've given the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And I believe that as we gather here to remember, we should take nothing for granted. As we do those things, whatever we're doing this afternoon, celebrating with family, it is, I believe, in many ways, part of our duty to remind folks exactly what Memorial Day is all about. And for me, this became very clear. I was actually in the state senate, and an 8th grader came up to me in the roundhouse. It was an 8th grader from Van Buren, actually, and they said, "Senator, why can't you change the national anthem to America the Beautiful?" And first I had to explain that, state senators don't change national anthems. That was sort of one discussion. But I thought about it a little bit, and it's actually something that folks have asked me from time to time, and I know has even come up in our national debate. And I think in Memorial Day, it's important to reflect on why that is the case, and I think everyone here knows this. But we've got to understand that while that is a beautiful song, and it's very special, our country didn't get to where it is today through a gradual, unfortunately, peaceful process. We didn't get here today with some sort of evolution of just ideas. We got here today because we overcame adversity. We stood up for what's right. We fought time and time again against the odds for what we believe. That is what our national anthem is all about. That's what we honor today on Memorial Day. So I want to ask at this point our family members, because that sacrifice, as everyone knows who served in the military had families, that sacrifice is not just borne by the individuals, it's borne by the families. And if folks are here, I think probably most of the folks in this room, if you have a family member in the military, a friend in the military, someone who you care about who's in service now, please go ahead and stand up. Let's acknowledge each other for coming today and sharing and remembering what Memorial Day is all about. Today we acknowledge that we were born as a nation, and we continue to exist when called upon through abrupt conflict, through a call to arms to stand up for our freedoms as the basis of our nation. And as your new democratically elected mayor, I get to stand here because, over the arc of time, millions of Americans have made that solemn choice, the choice to put their country ahead of themselves. It is through these heroes and their sacrifices that the pursuit of happiness and the freedoms that we enjoy continue to endure. Our service members come from all backgrounds, all walks of life, and they share fundamental qualities: courage, selflessness, dedication, service to a cause larger than oneself. And today we reflect upon those lives lost, and we celebrate those treasured memories. For the family members who just stood up, who we just acknowledged. We know that not a day goes by without each one of you thinking of the loved one that you lost and how much you miss them. But it's your strength, it's even your presence here today that carries on that memory, that is a light that shines on this day of remembrance, on this day of memorial, a notion that helps us persevere as a community and as a country through difficult times. Now, our city of Albuquerque is indeed in many ways a modern incarnation of all that we reflect on in Memorial Day. It's a day of family. It's a day for me, even in my own family, as I reflect on how I even got here to be your mayor, to even live and grow up in Albuquerque. For me, being born and raised here, it's an honor for me to wear an army green lapel pin, the choice my father made to serve our country. And for my family, like so many in Albuquerque, military service is a huge reason to why we are even here, to why this neighborhood even exists. It was about 50 years ago, a young ROTC graduate from the University of Notre Dame was finishing his tour in the Army. He made a choice. Like many of the individuals here today, like many of the families, despite a family on the way and career uncertainty, he was in the Army ready to be deployed to Vietnam. Nonetheless, that call never came for my father. Instead, he came to the Southwest, to a city where he could continue to serve in the reserves, where he could find a military community that was thriving, where he could live in a neighborhood right next to the base that was actually called military housing at that time. My father stayed here, like so many people in Albuquerque, because of that initial introduction through military service, and because of all that our city has to offer. And in fact, his story is the story of almost a quarter of the people who live in Albuquerque, whether indirectly providing professional services to our Air Force Base, to our labs, or they're directly through a connection to public service. A huge part of why we are here as a city and what modern Albuquerque is all goes back to that ultimate choice to serve our country. And so this story comes right back to our military, to that commitment to service, to that ultimate choice, and it's what we reflect on here today. Today, I believe that we owe more than acknowledgement for this, and even more than gratitude. What I must do as your new mayor is to step up with action to help those who have served our country. The best way I can honor soldiers we have lost is to take care of those still with us, those still fighting for us, those still making that choice, and their families that support them. And that's what I will continue to do in City Hall. And I'm asking our community to come together as one Albuquerque to help us do this. We started by hiring a full-time veterans liaison in the city of Albuquerque, and we've had them in the past under Mayor Barry, and I'm proud to say we have them again. And I want to introduce Thomas to us today. Thomas Tozier, 3 tours of duty. He is now our City of Albuquerque Veterans Liaison. Thank you, Thomas, for your service to our country, and also now to your service to our city. Also in Albuquerque, we are working to support veterans when it comes to all our integration projects, whether it's Desert Forge or the Veterans Integration Center. We are trying to utilize our veterans procurement preference to help veterans when it comes to entrepreneurship and finding jobs. And we're connecting the story that we're telling today to our children by hopefully having after-school programs here at this facility in the next coming years. And I want to thank our city councilors for voting for the funding to do just that last Monday. Thank you for enabling our kids to appreciate our service and our facilities. And lastly, we are expanding our homeless and mental health services, our PTSD programs, and our programs that hopefully one day will make Albuquerque a place where not a single veteran is on the streets. That's right, that should never happen in our city. And so today I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a few words as your new mayor, to remember and to reflect, and for the opportunity you've given me to stand up for the sacrifices that so many have made, so that we can make this city all that it is today and all that it can be in the future. Thank you, Albuquerque. Thank you, veterans. Thank you.